Gavin Newsom, he has a new policy out in California he's trying to push. He wants free health care for all migrants, for all illegals. You come here, you get free health care. Wow. So they've got, 760,000 undocumented people in California. If you give them all free health care, they're estimating it will cost somewhere around $2 billion. I actually think that's pretty optimistic. I think it's going to cost even more. But wouldn't that just incentivize more people to come here? I mean, think about what we had, 300,000 people that came to the U.S. that crossed the border. And those were the ones that were apprehended, right? We're not even talking about the ones that were released. We're not talking about ones that they didn't catch. So 300,000, most ever, in the month of December alone. Do you really think when you're like, woohoo, we got free healthcare, that that's actually going to dissuade people from coming? I mean, they got themselves a problem. And this is something that Senator Cassidy, I want to show you this soundbite from him, because Senator Cassidy totally hit it spot on. He said it really doesn't make any sense. He was on Fox actually just today, and this was his comment. He's, by the way, a doctor. He's a doctor who worked in Southern California, now a senator from Louisiana. But let's listen in here.
I did my medical residency in Southern California. They had a hospital there that was, for the uninsured at the time. And it was loaded with people who we kind of perceived to be there illegally. We never asked because we're going to treat them. I'm a doc. You come to me, I'm going to treat you no matter what. But there would be folks coming from Mexico with a note written in Spanish. Please address this condition. Women would come to deliver their babies. They would deliver and then return to Mexico. And all the benefits that go for children would go back with them, aid for dependent children, et cetera. So anyway, they absolutely.
Yeah. So think through that one. Like, enough is enough, right? Like, we've actually got to start thinking about ourselves as a country with actual borders. The idea that the federal government is suing Abbott because he's trying to actually enforce the border, that'd be the governor of Texas. I mean, how wild is this? If you are a country, you have to actually respect those borders. It's not like I can go to Mexico and, live off the dole in Mexico. That's not going to happen. And yet, why is it working this way? I mean, they've given us all kinds of excuses. I believe we've heard from Mayorkas in the past. Alejandro Mayorkas, who is, of course, our DHS secretary, tries to tell us, well, it's climate change and it's migration patterns and it's crime and poverty. Yeah, but that's always been there, right? That's always, unfortunately, for Latin America, been part of the story. In fact, if anything, they probably have more sort of, they're poor, but the poverty level, I mean, you look at a place like Brazil, right? They at least now have food to eat. I remember when I was reporting there and Lula was president, he's president again, and he was talking about how people needed to eat more healthy because they had a diabetes problem. People were like, wait, what are you talking about? This is Brazil. And they were like, gosh, wait, we do have a diabetes problem. But it was strange to the population because for years they had suffered from starvation. So these economies have changed, and they're still very, very poor, but they've always been poor. And I would say that in some ways maybe they're not quite suffering from the same really horrific standard of living. I don't think you can use that as an excuse. I think that's my point to Mr. Mayorkas. It's not an excuse, but they just keep saying they need more money, they need more money, they need more money. I mean, we heard Joe Biden just coming back fresh from vacation, red as a lobster. The guy had skin cancer and yet he's out there sunning himself. And he said, they got to give me the money. Let's watch. He's being asked if he's going to do something about the border. He said, well, they got to give me the money. They got to give me the money. He wants a lot of money to try and fix this. The problem is the Republicans don't want to give him the money because they're looking at it saying, whoa, you're actually just going to use this to help facilitate having more and more people that are undocumented here in this country. I mean, if you could promise us you're actually going to deport people that were coming here that you could, then maybe we could talk. But that's not actually what you want to do. I mean, really, and it was sort of on display in a recent interview that Mayorkas did, in which he was really questioned, and that was thrown out there. You know, Republicans are willing to do this, but you guys have got to make sure that the money goes directly for that. If they could come up with sort of a no strings attached and it would go directly for only the immigration issue, would you be willing to entertain it? Look at how he stumbles and he kind of, you know, dances around the actual question. I want you to see it.
As far out as 2031. You're talking about that. But when you say that Republicans won't accept the extra funding, they have a problem with the funds being used to release and transport illegal immigrants around the country. So Congress is listening right now. Would you accept the extra funding on the condition that the funds could only be used for detention and removal, but not release into the country?
Brett, the funds are needed to provide the Department of Homeland Security with more Border Patrol agents. The funds are needed to provide the Department of Homeland Security with more technology. The funds are needed to provide our
So he's trying to say that the
with
funds are going to
more
go all towards these things. But you know what? Nobody's buying it. And he wasn't able to answer the question directly. So we continue to have an issue here. We may have a shutdown over the darn thing. And overall, Biden's not going to be off the hook. He's not going to be off the hook because the average voter cares about this, whether you're Democrat or Republican. So they can talk about Trump being so bad all they want. Again, it comes back to whether or not voters actually believe it.